Hello, hello. So we're going to continue to work with clay. In this one, I'm going to show you how to roll out a slab of clay. So let's jump to my document camera. Really important, I think I've said this before, I'm just going to reiterate it. So when you have figured out how much clay you're going to be using, take what's left. So this is like what's left of my slab. I made a bead just a moment ago. I started to make my slip. Don't forget, if you haven't started to make your slip, be sure to do that. So cut off what you need and then put this back into your bag so that the clay doesn't dry out too much. So I'm going to cut from this far end. Just going to use a butter knife again. I'm just going to cut off about a little more than 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to take the extra block that I've got here and I'm just going to tuck it away in my Ziploc bag. Spoke about that in an earlier video. So want to press all of the air out of it, roll it up a few times, and then make sure that that bag is zipped up nice and tight. All right, so we're going to roll out a slab. Now, to do that, you're going to need something to roll with. So what I would recommend is just kind of look about and see what you've got. So I happen to have a drumstick. This is a little bit small. It can work, but you'll just have to be careful that you don't press the clay out too much. Also happen to have here just a glass. This is another glass that I use for painting. Actually, one of my boys used this recently for painting. But what you can see here is this like slightly wide area that's round, and I'll be able to roll over my clay with. Now, when I roll out a slab of clay, you might say, well, that looks like a good slab right there. It's a little bit thick. It's probably thicker than I want it to be. So I want it to be, like I say, just a little bit thinner. I want to make sure that I don't roll it too thin. Now, a pencil will be a good thickness for rolling out your clay. So I'm going to set up 2 pencils on either side. And those of you that worked with clay last year will hopefully remember this. And I'm going to use these pencils so that my clay doesn't get any thinner than the width of these pencils. Now, this is important. If you're going to be rolling this clay, think about the surface that it's on. If you know that this clay is likely to stick to this surface, which if it's wood or this is a plastic table that I've got here, it's probably going to stick. Then you need to put something down on the surface so that this won't stick to it. Now, we happen to have this nice plastic bag close at hand. So, going to use the plastic bag, going to kind of make sure that it's, kind of flat, a nice flat area. If there's any kind of bubble, like that was a little bit of a bubble underneath, that bubble is going to show up in your clay, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to bring my clay back, set up my pencils. Now, it will stick to this plastic, but it'll be easy to peel off. So I've got my pencils set up. I'm going to bring back my dirty cup. And I'm just going to start rolling the cup on this clay. Now, it's really important as you're doing this rolling, especially if you want it to kind of be uniform, that you pick up your slab as you're doing it and turn it. So you can see it started to get longer that way. Now I'm turning it, it'll get longer this way. So I'm going to bring the cup back again. I'm very gently just going back and forth. It's important that you have these pencils close or your clay will become thinner than your pencils, and you don't want that. So I'm paying real close attention to the clay and whether or not the cup that I'm rolling is on the pencils or not. And it appears that it is. I'm going to turn my clay one more time. So again, I'm just peeling it off of and you can see here, I don't know if you can see that, but that's where the clay was sticking to the bag. So I'm just going to turn it, put my pencils back, bring my cup over, and just kind of gently roll that back and forth. And what I have now is a very nice uniform thickness. So the thickness of this piece of clay across the whole thing is the same. I have a nice slab that I can work with. And what's nice about this is now you can use your knife or whatever tool you happen to have handy, maybe the end of a fork, and you can start to cut. So what shape would you like this to be? So I'm going to just do a little bit of cutting, cutting off some corners. It's important to know that like even scrap clay like this, you can form fairly quickly into a bead shape. So don't waste your scraps. So I've got a little bit of a bead shape there. I'm going to go ahead and use my toothpick to make that a bead. So remember, I'm kind of making that hole nice and large. On the other side where it's poked through unevenly, I'm going to kind of shape that now. So this was just excess clay. If you end up with, I don't know if you can see that there's a small crack there. Right now I'm just going to take my finger and just kind of smooth that crack out. Make it as clean as I can just while I'm working with it. So you can see I've made a bead. Setting my bead aside, I've started to shape my slab. This might be where if you have your drawings, you might want to kind of lay your drawing out and just kind of really think it through. But make sure that you're kind of picking this up. You can still do a lot of shaping with your fingers. But you can see here I've got a nice slab to work with that I can carve. And this thickness, this is a good thickness for a pendant. Alright, thanks for watching.